Let me tell you something. You were not created to repeat history. You were born to make it. And it starts the moment you open your eyes. There are 7 lines, 7 declarations of life and leadership that, when spoken daily, don't just inspire you, they transform you. Because your life doesn't change when your situation changes. Your life changes when your mindset changes. Say these 7 lines every morning and watch what begins to shift around you and within you. I was born with purpose, and today I walk in it. I was born with purpose, and today I walk in it. This is not just a phrase. It's not something nice to post on your wall or put in your bio. This is a declaration that cancels out every lie you've ever believed about being random, unwanted, or insignificant. You are not an accident. You are not a coincidence. You are not here just to survive until the weekend or make it to retirement. You were born with an assignment, with a call, with a reason for breathing that is bigger than bills, bigger than routine, bigger than the opinions of people who don't even know your story. Every morning when you say these words, you are rejecting the ordinary. You are stepping into identity. Because when you don't know your purpose, you'll settle for anything. You'll drift from job to job, relationship to relationship, opportunity to opportunity, hoping something will finally feel right. But when you walk in purpose, you stop searching for identity in temporary places. You know who you are. And because you know who you are, you know what you're not. You were born with purpose. And that means your life is not a reaction. It's a response. You don't wait to see what life throws at you and then figure it out. You wake up and declare your direction. You wake up and tell the day what it's about to become. That's purpose in motion. It's the difference between living and existing. People ask, how do I find my purpose? But purpose isn't found in a day. Purpose is revealed through discipline. It's when you commit to excellence in the small things. It's when you show up even when no one's watching. It's when you pour your heart into the task that everyone else overlooked. That's where your gift begins to whisper back to you. That's where clarity is born. Your purpose is never discovered in the comfort zone. It shows up when you move in faith, when you take the risk, when you say yes to something that scares you but grows you. Think about the seed of a tree. That seed was born with purpose. Its DNA already knew it would become something powerful. But it doesn't grow in the light. It grows in the dirt. It grows in the dark. It grows when no one is cheering. Some of you are in that dark place right now, wondering if anything is happening. But that dark season is not your death. It's your development. You are not buried. You are planted. So when you wake up and say, I was born with purpose, and today I walk in it, what you're doing is reminding your spirit that this moment matters. That even if today looks like routine, it's still part of the reason you're here. Every meeting, every conversation, every challenge is part of the blueprint. There's a trap people fall into. They wait for purpose to feel big. They think walking in purpose means being on stage, being famous, being known. But purpose is not about applause. It's about alignment. It's when your actions match your assignment. When a mother wakes up to raise her children with wisdom and love, that's purpose. When a teacher shows up for students who have given up on themselves, that's purpose. When a creator stays up late building something that doesn't exist yet, that's purpose. And when you commit to walking in your purpose, you start to find fulfillment in places you used to overlook. But here's the challenge. Walking in purpose will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you approval. It will cost you your old identity, because you can't walk in destiny and stay addicted to the opinions of people who never saw your value. You will lose some things on the way. But hear this, anything you lose while walking in purpose was never built to stay. Let it go. Release it. Don't cling to what can't carry your next level. Purpose is not about perfection, it's about progression. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need a 5-year plan written in stone. What you need is the courage to take the next step, the next right step. That's where purpose lives, not in the distant future, but in today's obedience. You might be listening to this thinking, but I made too many mistakes. I wasted too much time. I messed up too bad. Let me speak directly to that lie. Nothing you've done can cancel what's in you. You can't ruin what God already wrote into your design. You may have been detoured, but you are not disqualified. Purpose is patient. Purpose waits for you to wake up. And today, this morning, is your moment, not tomorrow. Not when you have more money, not when you feel more confident. Right now. So when you say, I was born with purpose, you're not just encouraging yourself, you're igniting a fire. And when you follow it up with, today I walk in it, you are telling fear to get out of the way. You are telling distraction to step aside. You are telling your old self, the one who settled, the one who played small, that their time is up. You're not waiting on motivation. You're moving in mission. You're not asking for permission. You're walking in position, because this is what you were born for, not just to exist, but to matter. Not just to breathe, but to build. Not just to live, but to lead. And the moment you believe it, you start becoming it. That's when everything changes, not outside you, but inside you. Because once you see yourself through the lens of purpose, you will never again tolerate a life that doesn't reflect it. I am the CEO of my mindset, and I run it with discipline. I am the CEO of my mindset, and I run it with discipline. Every day when you wake up, your mind is either your most powerful ally or your most dangerous enemy. It doesn't matter how much talent you've got, how many degrees you've earned, or how many people clap for you. If your mindset is chaotic, your life will follow that chaos. That's why this declaration is not a suggestion, it's a decision. You are the CEO of your mindset. That means you don't let just any thought walk through the door. You don't let anxiety run the meeting. You don't let fear lead the project. You sit at the head of the table and you make executive decisions about what stays and what goes. Most people live life like employees of their emotions. They clock in every morning and let circumstances hand them a script. You're tired. You're not good enough. Why even try? But you're not an employee in this building. You're the architect, the visionary. You don't take orders from fear. You give direction to your future. You don't just react to the world. You respond from a place of clarity and control. And make no mistake, this kind of mental authority doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from discipline. Just like a CEO has to review reports, make hard calls, and stay focused under pressure, you have to train your mind daily. Because if you don't run your mind will run you straight into anxiety, straight into procrastination, straight into regret. Think about how a company runs. If the CEO never checks in, doesn't review performance, doesn't fire what's toxic, that company fails. And that's what happens to people who don't take authority over their mindset. They start letting every doubt sit at the table. They entertain every criticism like it's a strategy session. They let the fear of failure run the entire operation. You cannot build success with a boardroom full of mental sabotage. It doesn't work. You have to be intentional. That means you get up in the morning and don't just grab your phone, scroll through someone else's life, and compare yourself to their highlight reel. No, you sit down and say to yourself, what kind of life am I building today? What kind of leader do I need to be for my future? What thoughts do I need to promote? And which ones do I need to fire immediately? You have to fire the voice that says, I'll never make it. Fire it. You have to promote the thought that says, I have the power to shift this moment. That's the thought that gets results. That's the kind of belief that creates momentum. Just like in business, it's not the loudest voice in the room that wins. It's the most strategic one. Your strategy starts with focus, with intention, with boundaries. Let me give you a real-world example. Think about an athlete training for the Olympics. Every day they get up with purpose. They don't eat what everyone else eats. They don't sleep in. They don't skip workouts because they don't feel like it. They are locked in. Why? Because their vision is clear. That's how your mindset has to be managed. Your future is your Olympics. You don't get to scroll all day, doubt yourself all night, and then complain about not seeing progress. No, you discipline your mind to match the level of your destiny. You control what you consume. You stop replaying old failures and start visualizing future victories. Because guess what? Your mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. That's why when you replay pain, your body feels it all over again. But when you visualize success with clarity, your brain starts building that path in the background. Your thoughts aren't just feelings, they're blueprints. They are setting the stage for what your life is allowed to produce. So if you're the CEO, you better make sure your mental office is running tight. Some people hear this and think it sounds extreme, but look around. What's really extreme is watching people waste years of their life stuck in patterns they could have broken if they just changed their thinking. What's extreme is settling for survival when you were designed to lead. Discipline is not a burden, it's your breakthrough. And when you start treating your mind like a business that must grow, that must scale, that must evolve, your results will follow. Being the CEO of your mindset means you don't let circumstances tell you who you are. It means you don't wait for motivation, you create it. It means you sit yourself down and say, we're not quitting today. We're not breaking down today. We're not spiraling into doubt. Not today. You run the show. You determine the pace. You choose the standard. That's what separates those who wish from those who win. That's what transforms an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. And it all starts with this one decision. I am the CEO of my mindset, and I run it with discipline. I will not allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. I will not allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. That single line can save your future, your peace, your relationships, your dreams, and even your destiny. Because what you feel in the moment is not always the truth. It's a snapshot, not the full story. And when you make permanent decisions based on a temporary emotion, you end up building a life that doesn't reflect your potential, only your pain. Emotions are powerful, but they are not designed to lead you. They are indicators, not instructors. They're meant to inform you, not control you. Think about how many people have walked away from something beautiful because of one bad day. Think about how many dreams died in a moment of anger. How many friendships were ruined by a single misunderstanding? How many businesses were abandoned after one failed attempt? That's what happens when emotion overrides vision. Emotions scream in the now, but purpose whispers through time. You've got to learn how to feel everything and still choose your direction. You can be angry, but still move in wisdom. You can be disappointed, but still speak with maturity. You can be scared, but still walk forward. Because leaders are not those who don't feel. They're the ones who don't let feelings make the final call. Let me tell you something real. Emotional decisions are expensive. You may not feel the cost today, but you will pay for them in peace, in time, and in progress. It's like throwing away a diamond because it was covered in dirt. Just because your vision is blurry today doesn't mean your future stopped shining. And when you decide based on the blur instead of waiting for clarity, you lose what was meant for you. I've seen people quit a job because they had one rough conversation, not realizing that discomfort was part of the growth they prayed for. I've watched people sabotage relationships because of their mood that day, not knowing that love requires maturity, not just chemistry. I've seen people give up on their calling because they didn't feel motivated, forgetting that purpose isn't based on feelings, it's built on discipline. You can't live your life by the waves of emotion. One moment you're up, the next you're down, and before you know it, your entire direction is being tossed around by how you feel. That's not living, that's surviving. And you weren't born to survive, you were born to lead. But leadership starts with emotional discipline. The moment you realize that how you feel is real, but not always right, is the moment you start to gain power. Because every feeling has a message, but not every message deserves a microphone. Just because fear shows up doesn't mean it gets to speak. Just because sadness knocks doesn't mean it gets to stay. You've got to create a system in your mind that allows you to process what you feel without becoming what you feel. There's a difference. Imagine being in a storm. The wind is loud, the rain is relentless, visibility is low. Would you build a house in that storm?
No.
You'd wait it out. You'd take shelter. You'd hold tight until the sky clears. That's how emotions work. They come in fast, they feel intense. But if you build in the middle of that storm, if you start quitting things, burning bridges, writing people off, you're building on temporary instability, and what's built in chaos usually collapses in clarity. This is where emotional intelligence becomes your superpower. You've got to learn the art of the pause, the moment where you breathe before you speak, the second you check in with your values before reacting, the space between the trigger and your response. That's where wisdom lives. That's where the best decisions are born. Not in rage, not in panic, not in heartbreak, but in reflection. Take relationships, for example. You get into an argument, emotions rise, you want to lash out, prove your point, walk away. But when you pause, when you hold space, when you recognize that what you're feeling in that moment is loud but not lasting, you respond differently. You speak life instead of death. You heal instead of hurt. You build instead of break. The same goes for your dreams. There will be days when you feel like it's not working, days when doubt hits like a wall. And if you make a decision in that valley, if you say, I'm done, in that low place, you rob yourself of the victory that was waiting just on the other side of persistence. Your future doesn't need your mood, it needs your commitment. It needs your ability to say, I feel tired, but I'm still showing up. I feel discouraged, but I'm not quitting. That's where champions are made, not in the highs, but in the consistency between the highs. So every morning when you declare this line, I will not allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. You're stepping into power. You're telling your inner world that you run this, that you don't bow to chaos, that your values, your vision, and your wisdom sit at the decision-making table, not your mood. And once that becomes your standard, your life will stop looking like a reaction and start looking like a masterpiece. I attract what I believe, not what I want. I attract what I believe, not what I want. This single truth has the power to shift the entire trajectory of your life. Most people spend their days speaking about what they want, writing down goals, visualizing dreams, and praying for breakthroughs, but deep down, they don't believe it's possible for them. And that's where the disconnection begins. Because life doesn't respond to wishful thinking, it responds to belief. Not the kind of belief you post about online, the kind of belief that shapes your habits, directs your choices, and creates an atmosphere around you that even life can't ignore. Wanting success is not enough. Wanting peace is not enough. Wanting abundance, love, purpose, all of that is not enough if what you truly believe is that you're unworthy of having it. If you believe you're always overlooked, guess what? You'll unconsciously filter every opportunity through that belief. You'll walk into rooms already shrinking yourself. You'll avoid the stage, avoid the spotlight, avoid speaking up, not because you don't have the talent, because your belief system told you that visibility is not for you. That's how powerful belief is. It either builds the bridge to your next level or it becomes the wall that keeps you locked in cycles. What you believe shows up in your energy before you say a single word. It shows up in how you carry yourself, in how you walk into a meeting, in how you respond to challenges, and how you recover after rejection. You cannot fake belief for long. Eventually, the truth of how you see yourself will expose itself in how you live. Let's take a real life example. Think about someone who believes they are a great speaker, not just someone who wants to speak, but truly believes in their gift. They walk into every room with a quiet confidence. They prepare like they're going to impact nations. They say yes to opportunities most people run from. And even if they mess up, they don't collapse. Why? Because belief holds them up. On the other hand, take someone who wants to speak but deep down thinks, no one will listen to me. That person will hesitate. They'll overthink. They'll sabotage. They'll shrink when the mic is passed their way. Not because they don't have the ability, but because their belief blocked the manifestation. You see this in relationships too. A person can desire love, dream about marriage, talk about wanting someone loyal and stable. But if they believe all love ends in betrayal, or that they're not lovable, or that they always get left, that belief will sabotage every healthy connection that comes their way. They'll either chase unavailable people or push away good ones. Not because they don't want love, but because they don't believe they deserve the kind of love they truly need. And let's be honest, we've all been there. We've all said we wanted something while secretly doubting it could ever happen for us. We've looked at our bank accounts and said, I want financial freedom, while believing that success is for other people. We've looked in the mirror and said, I want to feel confident, while carrying beliefs rooted in years of shame, comparison, and criticism. And that's where frustration grows, when the desire in your mouth is disconnected from the belief in your heart. But here's the truth: belief is not just a feeling. It's a decision. You have to choose to believe, even when the evidence isn't there yet, even when the results are delayed, even when you feel like an imposter in your own dream. Belief isn't about pretending you have it all figured out. It's about choosing to act like it's already yours until your life catches up with your faith. Think about the greatest innovators, leaders, creators, game changers. They didn't wait for the world to validate them before they moved. They moved first, they believed first, and that belief made them consistent. That belief made them disciplined. That belief pushed them to show up on days they felt invisible. Because when you believe, effort becomes a natural expression. You stop needing motivation every morning. You stop chasing validation. You move from a place of authority. And that's the difference between desire and destiny. Desire says, I hope it happens. Belief says, I'm preparing for it like it's already done. Desire says, maybe one day. Belief says, today is the day I align myself with what I expect. And when you truly believe something, it begins to show in your posture, in your routine, in your vocabulary. You stop saying, and start saying, when. You stop settling for survival, and you start designing your life with intention. Even science backs this up. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to your wants. It responds to your dominant beliefs. That's why affirmations aren't magic unless they are reinforced by inner conviction. You can repeat something 1,000 times, but if your core belief contradicts it, your life will reflect the belief, not the words. So the work is not just in what you say, it's in what you believe when you say it. It's in training your mind daily to believe bigger, deeper, stronger than the evidence in front of you. You don't attract what you wish for. You don't attract what sounds good. You attract what you believe you are worthy of, what you believe is possible, what you believe you were born to experience. Your life is a mirror of your inner convictions. So when you start elevating those beliefs, not just changing your words, but transforming your mindset, everything around you begins to shift. Doors open. People show up, resources align, because the universe is not responding to your wants, it's responding to your belief. I am surrounded by favor and I walk in expectancy. I am surrounded by favor and I walk in expectancy. Let that settle in your spirit, because this isn't just a feel-good line to repeat in the mirror. This is a declaration that changes how you carry yourself, how you face adversity, and how you show up in rooms you never thought you'd enter. When you begin to live with the mindset that favor is not just an occasional visitor, but a constant companion, everything about your day changes. You stop waking up with dread and start rising with anticipation. You stop begging life to be kind to you and start expecting it to unfold in your favor. Favor is not luck. It's not coincidence. It's alignment. It's living in such a way that doors recognize you. It's when people mention your name in rooms you've never entered. It's when what should have taken 10 years happens in 2. It's when opposition comes, but somehow things still work out for your good. That's favor. And it doesn't come to the one who complains the most. It doesn't visit the one who waits passively. It surrounds the one who expects it. Expectation is the soil where miracles grow. What you expect, you prepare for. And what you prepare for, you start to attract. That's why people who walk in expectancy are always ready. They don't let life catch them sleeping. They move like the thing they're believing for is already in motion. They talk like the deal is already closing. They train like the opportunity is already booked. They walk into the day as if life has something with their name on it. And it does. Let's break this down with a real life example. Have you ever seen someone walk into a job interview already defeated? They show up, but they're dragging their feet, their posture is slumped, their words are hesitant. You can tell they don't believe anything good is coming. And guess what? Even if they have the skill, the attitude cancels it out. On the flip side, someone walks in with expectancy, not arrogance, but confidence. Shoulders back, eyes focused, energy vibrant. They're not hoping for favor, they're aligned with it. That energy speaks before they do. It changes the atmosphere. That's the power of expectation. And when you live with the mindset that you are surrounded by favor, not just visited by it once in a while, you begin to interpret life differently. Challenges don't shake you as much because you know favor surrounds you like a shield. You stop questioning every setback because you trust that even the delay is working for your development. You stop seeking approval from everyone because you understand favor on your life will frustrate people who can't understand your journey. And that's okay. When favor surrounds you, you'll walk into places unqualified and still be chosen. You'll speak ideas others doubted and watch them come alive. You'll take risks that seem irrational to the crowd. But favor has a way of creating results that logic can't predict. But here's the key, you have to walk in expectancy. That means you don't just think good things might happen. You expect them to. Every morning you step into the day saying, something good is chasing me. The right people are looking for me. My name is being spoken in places I haven't even imagined yet. You have to train your mind to see life through the lens of favor. That means when you're in traffic, instead of losing your mind, you say, maybe I was delayed for protection. When someone walks out of your life unexpectedly, instead of spiraling, you say, favor is clearing space for what I truly deserve. When the opportunity closes, you don't panic. You posture yourself and say, if that door's shut, it must not have been big enough for what's about to enter. This kind of expectancy doesn't make you delusional. It makes you dangerous. Because when you believe that the unseen is working in your favor, you stop being manipulated by temporary circumstances. You stop being a slave to fear. You stop playing small to keep other people comfortable. You realize that favor doesn't mean your life will be easy. It means your life will be guided. And when life is guided, you can walk through storms with peace, walk into unknowns with boldness, and walk past critics with grace. Living in expectancy also means you prepare your life like favor is always showing up. If you're expecting abundance, you budget differently, you invest differently, you steward your resources like more is coming, because it is. If you're expecting love, you don't entertain toxicity. You elevate your standards, you become what you're believing for. If you're expecting opportunities, you keep your skills sharp, you stay ready, you build the portfolio, you rehearse the pitch, you position yourself because you understand that favor meets the prepared. And here's what happens, life starts matching your expectation. People are drawn to your energy. Situations unfold unexpectedly in your direction. What looked impossible begins to unfold with ease. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped blocking favor with doubt. You stopped questioning everything. You stopped waiting for permission. And you started walking like you belong in the rooms you're dreaming about. Every single day you declare this, I am surrounded by favor and I walk in expectancy. You are programming your mind to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You're aligning your spirit to receive what your environment hasn't yet caught up with. You're speaking to the invisible and calling it into the visible. Favor is not just something you look for. It's something you carry. And when you carry favor, doors don't just open, they swing wide because your presence is a signal that purpose has arrived. Today, I will be a solution, not a problem. Today, I will be a solution, not a problem. This declaration is more than words. It's a mindset that separates leaders from followers, builders from complainers, and visionaries from victims. When you say, I will be a solution, you are positioning yourself as someone who refuses to blend in with the crowd of critics and excuses. You are stepping into the arena of those who change atmospheres, who shift conversations, who carry answers when others only point out issues. The world is already full of problems, but the people who rise are those who decide to become the answer. Think about the environments you walk into every day, your workplace, your home, your relationships, your community. Every space has its share of tension, breakdown, confusion, inefficiency, or unmet potential. Most people walk in, observe the chaos, and either complain or withdraw. But a person who carries the mindset of a solution walks in and silently asks, how can I add value here? That one question changes everything. It unlocks innovation. It stirs creativity. It sparks influence. Because when you become the solution, you become indispensable. Look at it in a daily life context. Let's say you're in a job where the team is always behind schedule, communication is poor, and morale is low. The average person will roll their eyes, gossip in the break room, and do just enough to get by. But a solution-oriented person will identify the gaps, suggest a system, streamline a process, or volunteer to create a new workflow. They're not trying to be a superhero. They're just committed to creating impact where most people only see inconvenience. And guess what happens? Leaders notice, doors open, promotions come, not because of favoritism, but because solutions always rise to the top. And this goes beyond your career. In your relationships, this mindset can transform how you interact with others. Anyone can point out flaws. Anyone can highlight what's wrong. But it takes maturity to say, instead of reacting to the dysfunction, how can I contribute to the healing? If there's miscommunication, you become clarity. If there's tension, you bring calm. If there's distance, you initiate connection. That doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you respond with purpose instead of impulse. Being the solution doesn't mean you fix everything for everyone. It means you choose to elevate the space you're in rather than add to its chaos. This principle even shows up in how you handle your own challenges. You can either look in the mirror and say, I'm the problem, I'm broken, I'm stuck, or you can rise each day and say, today I will be the solution to my own setbacks. That means you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, and you start becoming the person your future self needs you to be. You stop blaming your past, and you start building from it. You stop saying, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, how can I grow from this? You take ownership, you move from victim to visionary. When you make this declaration each morning, today, I will be a solution, not a problem. You are setting your internal compass. It becomes a silent engine that drives how you approach every conversation, every decision, every opportunity. You stop asking, what can I get out of this? And start asking, what can I bring to this? That shift in posture multiplies your influence. People start seeing you as reliable, trustworthy, resourceful, and that's a reputation that opens more doors than talent alone ever could. Let's make it even more personal. Imagine you're in a friendship circle where everyone vents, but no one grows. Every week, it's the same problems, the same frustrations, the same drama. Instead of adding more fuel to the fire, you decide to be the one who shifts the culture. You introduce accountability. You challenge excuses. You ask better questions. You create space for healing. And maybe people resist at first. Maybe they even pull away. But over time, you'll find that people are drawn to stability. They're drawn to someone who doesn't just agree with pain, but speaks to purpose. That's what being a solution does. It lifts the standard. It sets the tone. It changes the room. It reminds everyone that problems don't define us, responses do. And the more you walk in this mindset, the more you train your brain to look for possibilities instead of problems. Even in the darkest situations, you start seeing light. Even in loss, you find lessons. Even in confusion, you create clarity. Because you've made a decision, you will not be a source of more weight in the world. You will be the hand that lifts, the voice that empowers, the mind that solves, and the spirit that leads. This isn't always easy. It takes energy to show up with a solution when your own life feels like it's unraveling. It takes strength to be a light when you feel unseen. It takes courage to lead when no one claps for you. But that's what separates those who make history from those who just watch it unfold. You've got to decide that even if no one thanks you, even if no one sees the effort, you will keep being the answer, not for applause, but because it's who you are. Because at the end of the day, when people look around in search of hope, they need to find someone who refused to add to the noise and instead brought a clear, steady solution. Let that someone be you. Let that identity guide every step you take from the moment your feet hit the floor in the morning. The version of me I'm becoming is already on the way. The version of me I'm becoming is already on the way. Let that sink in. Let those words echo in your spirit, because there is power in the idea that the person you're destined to be isn't some distant future version, but a present reality that's already unfolding. When you wake up each day, there's a part of you that's already aligned with your highest potential. It's not a dream to chase, it's a truth to embrace. It's not a future you're waiting for, but a reality that's already in motion. And you are the one who gets to walk in that destiny step by step. Think about it. How often do we get caught up in waiting? We wait for the right time, the right opportunity, the right conditions to make our move. We spend so much time wishing for something to change, forgetting that the change begins within us, that the transformation we seek is already unfolding inside. The version of you who is confident, who stands in their power, who thrives in their purpose. They're not waiting around. They are being forged through the challenges you face every single day. Look at your life right now. You may not be where you want to be, but the version of you who has what you're hoping for is already in the process of being developed. This is why every setback, every disappointment, and every challenge isn't an obstacle. It's part of your transformation. It's preparing you for the greatness that is already on its way. When you go through tough times, you're not being punished, you're being shaped. The struggles you face today are the muscle building moments for the next level of your life. You cannot go higher without the resistance that strengthens you. So when life throws curveballs, instead of shrinking back, embrace the discomfort, because it's only making you stronger, wiser, and more capable of stepping into the person you are becoming. And let me tell you something, the process of becoming isn't a linear path. It's full of twists, turns, setbacks, and growth spurts. But that's the beauty of it. The journey isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to refine you, stretch you, challenge you, and push you to places you never thought you'd go. You don't get to the top by taking the easy road. You get there by confronting your fears, by overcoming doubts, and by showing up even when it seems like the odds are stacked against you. The version of you that's on the way isn't afraid to face difficulty. In fact, they run toward it because they know it's preparing them for something greater. Consider the caterpillar, for example. Before it becomes a butterfly, must first go through the process of metamorphosis. It enters the cocoon, dark, isolated, and seemingly still. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But inside, there is an incredible transformation occurring. The caterpillar's body is literally being broken down and restructured to become something entirely new. This is the process of becoming. And just like that caterpillar, your transformation is happening right now, even when it seems like you're stuck. You may be in your cocoon moment, feeling like you're not making progress. But rest assured, the version of you that is meant to fly is already in the making. It's only a matter of time before the world sees the new you emerging. And you've got to embrace that process. The version of you that's on the way isn't just waiting for external circumstances to change. It's waiting for you to tap into your inner strength, your belief, and your ability to rise. The person you are becoming is not dependent on anyone else's approval or validation. They are only waiting for you to make the decision to show up fully, to step into your power, and to stop doubting that you deserve the life you're envisioning. It doesn't matter what the world says about your potential. What matters is what you say. And you have the power to declare that the best version of yourself is already coming to fruition. Think about all the small victories you've had so far. Maybe they weren't grand, but they were steps forward. Every time you didn't give up when it got hard, you moved closer to the person you are becoming. Every time you stood tall despite fear, you became a little bit stronger. Every time you forgave yourself or someone else, you let go of the baggage that was holding you back. Every time you took a chance on yourself, you took a step closer to the greatness that's already inside you. These moments, no matter how small, are the building blocks of the future you. The person you are becoming is already equipped with everything you need. They have the courage to take risks. They have the wisdom to learn from their mistakes. They have the resilience to keep going even when the path is unclear. But that person can't emerge if you're stuck in the past, holding on to old stories and doubting what you are capable of. The person you are becoming is free from limiting beliefs. They are confident, bold, and unapologetically themselves. And the only thing standing between you and that version of yourself is the decision to stop living like you're stuck and start living like you're in the process of becoming who you were always meant to be. So every day, look at yourself in the mirror and remind yourself, the version of me I'm becoming is already on the way. When you say that, you're not just affirming a future possibility, you're affirming a present reality. You're telling your mind, your body, and your spirit that you are on the path to greatness, even if the steps are small right now. You're letting the world know that you are not just a dreamer, you are a doer. The best version of you is already in motion, and nothing can stop it because it's already a part of you, just waiting to be unleashed. And the more you believe that, the more you align your actions with that truth, the faster you'll see that transformation manifest in your life. You are becoming everything you've ever dreamed of. Now, let me leave you with this thought. The journey you're on today is not just a chapter, it's the beginning of something magnificent. You are not a spectator in your own life. You are the architect, the builder, and the creator of your destiny. What you have inside of you is far greater than anything you've faced so far. The challenges, they are stepping stones, the setbacks. They're just setups for your comeback. Every obstacle that has ever stood in your way was never meant to stop you. It was only meant to strengthen you, to refine you, to prepare you for what you are about to become. I want you to understand this because it's crucial. The person you are becoming has already been written in the stars. You were born with purpose. You were born with greatness inside of you. But greatness does not come easily. It doesn't come by accident. It comes by decision. It comes when you make the conscious choice to rise above fear, above doubt, above the noise of the world. It comes when you choose to stand tall, to keep moving forward, even when the world tries to pull you back. Because here's the truth. No one can stop you unless you allow them to. No one can hold you back unless you let them. And the only person who can truly limit your potential is you. But once you unlock the belief in your heart that you are destined for more, that you are capable of more, that you are worthy of more, nothing can stand in your way. The person you are becoming is unstoppable. The version of you who was meant to soar above every limitation, above every lie that told you, you can't. That version is rising. And when you start believing that, when you start walking in the belief that you are destined for greatness, things will begin to shift in your life. Doors will begin to open. Opportunities will begin to align. The people and resources you need will come into your life like a magnetic force. But it all starts with your mindset. It starts with your belief in yourself and in the life you are creating. But don't be fooled by the overnight success stories you see around you. Those are the exceptions, not the rule. True greatness is built in the shadows. It's built when no one is watching. It's built in the quiet moments, in the daily grind, in the sacrifices that no one else sees. So, when you're putting in the work, when you're facing setbacks and challenges, don't get discouraged. Understand that those moments are shaping you into the person you need to become. They're preparing you for the life that is waiting for you. Remember this, the world doesn't owe you anything. No one owes you success, but you owe it to yourself to give your best, to pursue your dreams, and to refuse to settle for mediocrity. You owe it to yourself to stand in your power, to speak your truth, and to never apologize for wanting more from life. You are not just here to survive, you are here to thrive. You are here to make an impact. You are here to leave a legacy. And that legacy starts with the small steps you take today. It starts with the courage you show when everything seems uncertain. It starts with the resilience you display when everyone else has given up. You are not a product of your circumstances. You are a product of your choices. And I want to challenge you today, take that bold step forward. You've waited long enough. You've stayed in the shadows long enough. The world is waiting for the brilliance that only you can offer. The world is waiting for the impact that only you can make. You've got a gift inside of you, a gift that is needed now more than ever. You've got a purpose, a calling, a mission that is bigger than anything you've ever imagined. So stop playing small, stop hiding behind fear, behind doubt, behind excuses. Step into the greatness that has always been yours. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be persistent. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to take the next step. And most importantly, you have to believe not in the impossible, but in the possibilities. The possibilities that await you are endless. The future you desire is already on its way, and all you have to do is walk into it with confidence, with faith, and with the unwavering belief that you are exactly where you are meant to be. So the next time you face a challenge, remember this: you are not defined by your circumstances, you are defined by your response. You are not bound by your past, you are propelled by your future. You are destined for greatness, and nothing can stop you from becoming the person you were always meant to be.
Let me begin with a question that might shake something deep within you. What if the breakthrough you've been praying for isn't waiting on a miracle, it's waiting on you to simply show up? See, the Bible says in Galatians 6 verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That proper time is coming, but the key to unlocking it is consistency. Relentless, quiet, stubborn consistency. This isn't a message about motivation, it's a call to action. It's a wake-up alarm for the part of you that keeps waiting for the perfect moment. Let me tell you this: perfection is a myth, and comfort is a thief. And if you keep waiting for perfect timing, you'll spend your whole life wishing instead of building. I came to speak to the part of you that's still alive under the weight of disappointment, the part that remembers the dream but forgot how to chase it. I came to remind you that you are not too late, not too broken, not too small, and definitely not disqualified. You were created by a God who specializes in starting with what looks like nothing. Genesis 1 verses 20 to 24 shows us that God spoke life into emptiness, and it obeyed. If he could bring forth birds from the sky and life from the waters, then what's stopping him from birthing greatness from your chaos? But he needs your yes. He needs your movement. He needs you to show up. So today, we go deep. We tear down excuses. We face fear head on. We confront laziness, distractions, and doubt, and we replace them with discipline, clarity, and divine strength. Because your life won't change until you do. Let's begin. I want to start by thanking you for showing up. Because just by being here today, you've already taken the first step toward changing your life. And I don't say that lightly. I say it because I know what it costs to show up. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Some of you showed up tired. Some of you showed up confused. Some of you showed up with questions, heartbreak, disappointment, and doubt. But you showed up. And that's power. Furthermore, Ecclesiastes 11 verses 4 says, whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. In other words, if you're always waiting for the right time, you'll never move. You'll miss your moment watching the weather of your emotions. You'll miss what God wants to build through your obedience. Because the truth is, He doesn't bless comfort. He blesses faith. Moreover, I want you to begin to ask yourself a sobering question. What is the cost of not showing up for your life? Because make no mistake, there is a cost. For every day we stay silent when God tells us to speak. For every gift we bury out of fear. For every dream we postpone because we're waiting on applause. There is a cost, and it's usually regret. Still, you're not here by accident. God brought you here because He wants to stir something in you. He wants to ignite that holy fire again. The one that used to burn before life tried to smother it. The one that had vision. The one that said, I know this is hard, but I also know I'm not alone. Because deep down, we all know this. Change doesn't begin with crowds. It begins with a choice. Finally, I want to leave you with this. God will meet you at the level of your movement, not your excuses, not your delays, not your complaints, but your movement. So don't underestimate what He can do when you just show up. Today we begin not by being strong, but by being available. Are you ready? Now that we've laid the foundation, understanding the sheer power of simply showing up, let's dig deeper into what keeps us from doing it consistently. Because if we're being honest, it's not always the lack of opportunity or time that holds us back. More often, it's our emotions. It's the heaviness of discouragement, the fear of failing again, or that nagging voice that whispers, you're not good enough. Let's go there. You see, we've been taught to show up only when we feel strong, when we've got it all together, when we've wiped the tears and stitched the wounds. But the Bible says something different. In 2 Corinthians 12, verses 9 to 10, Paul says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That's not just scripture. That's survival for some of us. Let me tell you about a woman I once knew. She had lost her husband, her business was failing, and she was battling depression so deep she didn't want to get out of bed. But every morning she got up, opened her Bible, and whispered, God, I don't feel you, but I choose you. Day after day, she kept showing up in worship, in prayer, in her responsibilities. She wasn't performing, she was just surviving. And one day, joy returned. Not because her situation changed overnight, but because she changed. Her consistency created capacity for healing. Likewise, pain is not always a sign that you're in the wrong place. Sometimes it's proof you're on holy ground. The pressure you feel isn't to destroy you. It's to reveal what God already placed inside you, because nothing reveals your purpose like pain, and nothing reveals your God like pressure. Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, under the weight of agony, still showed up. He prayed through sweat like blood. He said, not my will, but yours be done. If Jesus had to wrestle through pressure to fulfill purpose, what makes us think we won't? This is why you can't allow pain to push you into isolation. That's what the enemy wants. He wants you silent, detached, disengaged, because he knows if you show up, even wounded, God will use that moment to shift something in your spirit. Even your groan becomes a weapon when it's lifted in faith. Showing up in pain says, God, I trust you more than I trust what I feel. And let me tell you, those are the moments that heaven records. Not just the times when you preach or shine, but the times when you barely had the strength to whisper, amen, and still whispered it. Moreover, consistency in pain builds spiritual authority. It tells the enemy, you may have touched my circumstances, but you didn't silence my spirit. And that is powerful. Because people may forget your accomplishments, but they'll never forget the strength you displayed when life tried to break you. So I challenge you, don't wait until you feel good to be faithful. Don't wait until the pain is gone to pray. Don't wait until the applause returns to keep building. Show up in your valley, and God will meet you there. And if you're in that place right now where showing up feels like the last ounce of strength you have, I want you to know you're not alone. You are surrounded by grace, covered by mercy, strengthened by the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. Now that we've established the importance of faith over fleeting emotions, you might still be asking, but what if I'm afraid? That's a real and valid question, because fear is one of the loudest voices trying to stop you from stepping into your purpose. So even if you're shaking, even if your knees are weak, even if doubt is knocking at the door, do it scared, because when you move with trembling hands, heaven still responds. Let's talk about what it looks like to walk with courage while fear tries to chase you down. Let's go there. Now let's talk about one of the hardest seasons you'll ever face. The silent season. The season when you're doing the right thing, making the sacrifices, showing up every single day, but no one is watching. No one is clapping. No one is saying, well done. It feels like all your effort is invisible, doesn't it? But can I tell you something that will change your perspective? Your audience is not the crowd. Your audience is God. Sometimes God intentionally hides you. Yes, hides you. He allows the silence not to punish you, but to purify you, to test your motives, to grow your roots deeper before he reveals your fruit. Because if your purpose is built on applause, then it will crumble the moment people stop cheering. Similarly, God is more interested in who you're becoming than what you're producing. And showing up with integrity when no one is clapping, that's the fire where true greatness is forged. Furthermore, if you stop moving because no one sees you, ask yourself, who were you doing it for in the first place? Real purpose doesn't need spotlights. It just needs conviction. The kind of conviction that says, even if nobody notices me, I'll keep building. Even if nobody shares it, I'll keep serving. Even if nobody celebrates it, I'll keep showing up. Because remember this, Noah built the ark when it wasn't raining. David worshiped in the field when there was no crown. Jesus prayed in the garden when all his friends were asleep. God has always done his deepest work in quiet places. Every act of obedience when no one is looking is a seed. And God doesn't forget seed. Galatians 6 verse 9 says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So don't quit just because it's quiet. Don't stop just because it's slow. There's a harvest waiting on the other side of your persistence. Keep moving, keep pressing, keep trusting, because while others are clapping for noise, heaven is preparing to reward your consistency. Sometimes the real breakthrough doesn't come when you're strong, it comes when you show up in your brokenness. Let's be honest, there are days you don't feel like doing anything. Days when the weight of life, disappointment, and fatigue makes even the smallest task feel overwhelming. You feel tired in your body, tired in your mind, tired in your soul. But even in that moment, something sacred happens when you say, I'll show up anyway. You see, we've been conditioned to think that we can only build when everything is perfect, when the money is right, when the energy is high, when the emotions are stable. But can I remind you of something powerful? Some of God's greatest movements came through people who were weary, worn, and weak. Yet they said yes. They said, I don't have it all together, but I'll move forward anyway. Moreover, think about Nehemiah. He rebuilt the wall of Jerusalem in the midst of opposition, fatigue, and threat. The people were tired. The resources were limited. Enemies were mocking them. But Nehemiah said in Nehemiah 4 verse 6, the people had a mind to work. Not a perfect life, not endless resources, just a willing heart and a working mind. So the next time you say, I'm too tired, I'm too broke, I'm too emotionally drained, remind yourself, that's exactly where God loves to work. When you're at the end of yourself, you're finally at the beginning of his power. Even Jesus, on his way to the cross, stumbled under the weight of it. But he didn't give up. He got back up and finished the assignment, even in agony. That tells me that pain doesn't cancel purpose. Your cracks don't make you unusable. They make you relatable, human, and open to grace. So build while you bleed. Pray while you're tired. Serve while you struggle. That's where divine strength flows. That's where heaven leans in and says, that's what I can bless. Keep showing up, not because you feel strong, but because you know that he is. Because even in brokenness, purpose can be fulfilled. And sometimes that's when it shines the most. So now we've seen that lack of resources is never a valid reason to delay purpose. You don't need abundance to begin. You just need obedience. But here's where many people still get stuck. They start with fire, but they don't stay with focus. That's where the real transformation happens, not in the moments of excitement, but in the daily grind when no one is clapping and nothing feels glamorous. Motivation might get you started, but only discipline will keep you moving. Let's talk about how to build unshakable consistency, not based on feelings or hype, but on the strength that comes from knowing God walks with you through every step. Let's go deeper. Fear is one of the biggest lies you will ever encounter. It whispers, you're not ready. It tells you you'll fail again. It paralyzes your movement and delays your destiny. But today I need you to hear this loud and clear. You don't have to be fearless to move forward. You just have to do it afraid. Now you might be thinking, but I'm nervous. What if I get it wrong? What if I fall flat? Let me ask you, what if you fly? What if the trembling step you take today unlocks the breakthrough you've been praying for tomorrow? You see, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that your purpose matters more than your panic. I once met a man who told me he had been sitting on a book idea for 15 years, not because he didn't know what to write, but because fear kept saying no one will read it. One day he told me he got tired of negotiating with fear. He sat down, trembling hands and all, and started writing anyway. That book has now touched thousands, and the man who once doubted himself now teaches others how to overcome fear. And maybe that's the key. Stop waiting for the fear to disappear and start increasing the volume of your faith. Speak louder, act bolder, pray stronger. Declare, God is with me, I cannot fail. Remember this. The lion is not the largest animal in the jungle, but he's the boldest. You don't have to be the biggest, the best, or the most brilliant. You just have to be bold enough to believe that God in you is enough. And he is. So start the business scared, go back to school scared, launch the ministry, write the book, Apply for the opportunity even if your knees are shaking. Just move. Because fear cannot hold a person who is already walking forward. This is your moment. This is your chapter of bold obedience. God didn't call you to comfort. He called you to courage. And His presence is your permission slip. Do it scared. Just don't stay stuck. At some point, the talking must stop and the doing must begin. We can pray, we can fast, we can journal, we can wait, but none of those things replace the power of simply showing up and taking action. James 2 verse 17 tells us, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. Not asleep, not delayed, dead. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to carry dead faith. I want my faith to breathe, to walk, to stretch, to risk, to leap. I want to partner with God, not just in belief, but in motion. That means doing it even when the timing isn't perfect, when I still have questions, when all the answers haven't arrived. That's what real faith looks like. Messy, sweaty, brave movement in the direction of your calling. I remember a young woman who wanted to start a community project in her neighborhood. She waited for funding, she waited for a team, she waited for someone to believe in her. And then one day she said, what if I just start with what I have? So she did. One Saturday she showed up with bottled water, snacks, and a handwritten flyer. Only 3 people came, but she kept showing up. 3 became 10, 10 became 50, and now she leads a nonprofit serving hundreds every month. Why? Because she stopped overthinking and started doing. Likewise, your small start may be someone else's breakthrough. Your obedience may be the open door for someone else's healing, but you'll never know until you do it. Even Jesus didn't just speak healing. He acted, he touched, he moved, he stepped out of heaven and into earth, lived among us, and went to the cross not just with divine intention, but with deliberate action. He is our ultimate example of doing the hard things, even when it costs everything. And let me remind you, doing it doesn't mean doing it perfectly. Perfection is a trap. God is not looking for flawless execution. He's looking for faithful effort. He blesses the obedient heart, not the perfect performance. Your healing is not in the waiting room of procrastination. It's in the hallway of obedience. And every single time you show up, something shifts in the spiritual. Your faith gets stronger. Your identity gets clearer. Your mind gets sharper. And heaven leans in and says, look at my child walking in faith. Now that we've embraced the mindset of excellence, giving God our very best in every moment, you might be wondering, what if I don't see big results yet? And that's a fair question, because excellence isn't always rewarded instantly. But here's the truth. Greatness is not built in giant leaps. It's built in small, consistent steps taken daily. The real power lies in showing up when it's ordinary, staying faithful when it's unnoticed, and celebrating the small wins that build momentum over time. We want divine intervention, but God is asking for divine participation. He blesses the steps you take, not the excuses you make. Think about that. Some of us are stuck, not because God hasn't answered, but because we haven't acted. It's easier to make an excuse than it is to make a decision. It's easier to say, I'm not ready, than to say, I'm scared, but I'm showing up anyway. But let me lovingly remind you today, faith has no room for comfort zones. There is no growth in the place of excuse. Psalm 90 verse 17 says, "May the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us." What work? The work of our hands, not the work of our intentions, not the work of our complaints, not the work of our delay. God establishes what we do, not what we say we'll do someday. Sometimes it's not about huge progress. Sometimes it's just about momentum. If you can just keep moving forward, inch by inch, God will breathe on your steps. He'll multiply your small. He'll favor your faithfulness. He'll honor your commitment. So the next time you're tempted to say, "I don't have the money," say instead, "But I still have my mind, my faith, my feet, and my God." The next time you want to say, "I'm not enough," remind yourself, Christ in me is more than enough. The next time you want to say, "What's the use?" declare, God blesses motion, and I'm not stopping now. Keep walking, keep building, keep fixing, keep praying, keep creating. Because God blesses the work of your hands, not the comfort of your excuses. Too often, we wear our wounds like name tags. We walk around introducing ourselves by our pain. "Hi, I'm the one who failed at business. I'm the one who was betrayed. I'm the one who was abandoned, rejected, or abused." And we wonder why we can't move forward when we're still rooted in the story of yesterday. Because here's the truth. As long as you let the pain of your past define you, you will sabotage the promise of your future. God is trying to bring healing into your life, but you have to refuse to let pain be your permanent label. I remember hearing a woman share how she was molested as a child. For years, she never spoke of it. She buried the shame, but it buried her purpose. One day, she stood in church during worship and felt God whisper, "I didn't just bring you through this. I want to use this to heal others." That day, she surrendered her pain to God, not by forgetting it, but by refusing to let it define her. Today, she runs a powerful support ministry for women who've suffered similar trauma. She showed up even in the pain. So what do you do with pain? You refuse to waste it. You refuse to let it silence you. You turn it into wisdom. You let it stretch your compassion. You let it deepen your prayer life. And most of all, you use it as fuel. Because the devil's greatest fear is not your pain. It's that you'll heal and then rise and then lead others out of the same pain. So today, stand tall, even if you're shaking. Speak up, even if your voice cracks. Try again, even if the last time nearly destroyed you. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistake. You are not what happened to you. Now that we've uncovered how true transformation begins in the mind, how a renewed mindset reshapes our habits, our vision, and our identity, it's time to address what happens when you've been doing all the right things and still the results feel slow. You're thinking better, you're showing up, you're doing it scared, tired, and broke. But what about the reward? So let's talk about why you must not give up now. Let's dig into the truth that God rewards the grind and your breakthrough may be one faithful step away. Let's lean in. Interestingly, most people are waiting for a miracle, but they are not showing up in the areas where God wants to move. They cry for breakthrough, yet they ignore the seed in their hand. They ask for promotion, but they neglect the assignment of today. But let me tell you something life-changing. God does not bless your potential. He blesses your faithfulness. Luke 16, verse 10 reminds us, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." That means heaven watches what you do with your little. How you treat the little opportunity, the little platform, the little time, the little strength, the little money. That little is your test. Sometimes the supernatural doesn't come from a mighty wind or a blazing fire. It comes from quiet, daily faithfulness. God shows up in the unseen, in the private disciplines, in the silent sacrifices. When you show up and obey, when no one claps, when nobody notices, that's where character is born and heaven pays attention. Think of a man who worked as a janitor in a church for 14 years. Every morning he would pray over every pew he cleaned. No one saw him, no one praised him, but God did. One day the senior pastor fell ill, and this janitor who had been feeding on the word privately was asked to share a short devotion. That short word turned into a 45-minute sermon that birthed revival. Today he's the senior pastor of a thriving church, not because he chased a platform, but because he was faithful in private. Friend, don't despise your small beginnings. The smallest acts done in obedience carry more eternal weight than the loudest moves done in pride. Show up to that small group, even if only 2 people attend. Show up to your prayer closet, even if you feel dry. Show up in your business with integrity, even if you're not yet making profits. Show up in your marriage, even when it's hard. Just keep showing up. Why? Because God is watching the faithfulness, not the applause. And when you prove faithful with little, you won't have to beg for doors to open. God himself will unlock them. Divine favor flows where discipline is present. Miracles break forth where obedience has been planted. Supernatural increase is not random. It's rooted in consistency. So don't wait until it feels perfect. Don't wait until you're noticed. Show up, stay consistent, trust God with the outcome, because the supernatural follows the faithful. So now the question stands before you like a mirror. What are you going to do with what you've just heard? James 1 verse 22 boldly reminds us, be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. This means transformation won't come simply because you nodded your head in agreement. It comes when you act, when you move, when you show up. If you truly believe God is calling you higher, then don't just feel inspired. Respond. Let today mark the death of every excuse and the birth of relentless obedience. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for more money, more support, or more clarity. If God gave you the vision, he already placed within you the grace to start. You may have to walk alone. You may start while your heart is still trembling. You may have to push through exhaustion, disappointment, or fear. But one step of obedience in weakness is stronger than 1,000 days of waiting in comfort. So I challenge you, this week, take one bold step of faith. Sign up. Speak up. Start. Apply. Apologize. Write it. Build it. Pray again. Forgive again. Try again. Whatever it is, just do it with God. Let this be the turning point in your story. The moment you stop waiting and start walking. Because when you show up consistently, heaven responds consistently. From this moment on, you're not just dreaming, you're doing. You're not just hoping, you're building. You're not just wishing, you're walking. No more delay, no more excuses, no more fear. Say it with me. I will show up every day. I will do it alone. I will do it tired. I will do it broke. I will do it scared. I will do it with God, and I will win. Your life doesn't change when everything gets easier. It changes the moment you decide to show up, even when it's hard. Now, as we draw near to the end of this journey together, I want you to pause for a moment, not to reflect on what you've heard, but to prepare for what you're about to become. Because everything we've uncovered, every truth, every story, every scripture, it all points to one thing: a decision, a line in the sand, a moment where you stop thinking about change and start living it. So let's close with one final charge, one that will stir your spirit into action and anchor your heart in purpose. So here we are. You've heard the message, you've felt the conviction, and now the spotlight is not on this stage, it's on you. Because at the end of the day, the life you're dreaming of isn't waiting for the perfect version of you, it's waiting for the present you, the broken you, the weary you, the scared you, the one that God still calls, still equips, and still believes in. You see, God never asked for perfect vessels. He asked for willing ones. And willingness shows up even in pain, even in poverty, even in obscurity, even in fear. The power is not in how you feel. The power is in what you do. That's why Philippians 1 verse 6 says, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." God finishes what he starts, but he needs you to start showing up. So here is the charge. No more waiting for ideal conditions. No more apologizing for your beginning. No more disqualifying yourself because of your past. You have everything you need for today because you have God. Show up when it's dark. Show up when no one claps. Show up when your knees are shaking. Show up because something shifts in the spirit when you simply decide, I'm not quitting. So rise up, take the first step, then take the next, and the next, until momentum meets your faith and heaven multiplies your obedience. Because when you show up every day, the rest of your life must obey the command of discipline. Your healing will find you. Your purpose will unfold. Your impact will expand. And your legacy will echo this truth. You didn't wait. You didn't wish. You didn't wait. You showed up. And that is what changed everything. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you today. I don't know how you came into this room, maybe full of hope, maybe full of questions, or maybe you're here clinging to the last thread of faith. But wherever you are in your journey, I want you to take a deep breath, exhale, and hear this truth with your whole heart. Act as if everything always works out, not because we are pretending problems don't exist, but because we serve a God who never fails. Several years ago, I hit a wall. I was in a season where nothing made sense. Bills piling up, opportunities slipping away, prayers met with silence. And I remember one morning, sitting in my car after yet another rejection call, just staring at the steering wheel. I whispered, God, are you still writing this story? Because the pages feel blank right now. And in that quiet, I sensed a whisper back. Not a booming voice, but a nudge in my heart. Walk like it's already done. That moment didn't fix everything overnight, but it changed me. From that point, I chose to show up differently. I began to act as if the breakthrough was already on its way. I applied for jobs like I was already qualified. I woke up each morning and dressed like I had somewhere important to be. I prayed like the answer was already yes. And over time, doors began to open. But more than that, my faith grew roots. Interestingly, this isn't just motivational talk, it's biblical. In Hebrews 11:1, Scripture tells us, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Think about that. Faith is the substance. It's the real stuff of the things we haven't touched yet. It's the evidence of what's still invisible. That means when you act as if, you're not living in denial, you're living in the truth of what God has already spoken, even if it hasn't manifested yet. Moreover, the heroes of faith didn't wait for visible proof before they moved. Noah built the ark before the first drop of rain. Abraham packed up and left without knowing where he was going. David ran toward Goliath, not away. They lived like God's promises were already fulfilled, because in God's timeline, they were. So tonight I want to ask you, what would change in your life if you truly believed that everything would work out? Not perfectly, but for your good and His glory. What if you stopped rehearsing defeat and started rehearsing deliverance? Because when you walk in that kind of faith, not fear, not fantasy, but faith, you don't just wait for the promise, you prepare for it. And that kind of preparation moves heaven. Let's go deeper. Now, let me explain how mindset affects behavior and the outcomes. Now, one of the most powerful things God has ever given us, besides His Spirit, is perspective. The way you see something determines the way you respond to it, and your response shapes your result. It's not just what you're facing that matters, it's how you perceive what you're facing. That's why tonight I want to talk about shifting your mindset. Act as if everything always works out, not from logic to fantasy, but from fear to faith. There's a world of difference between wishful thinking and acting in faith. Now let's be real. Wishful thinking is passive. It hopes for the best without preparing for it. It says maybe one day, but takes no steps toward that day. Faith, on the other hand, acts as if the promise is already in motion. It doesn't wait for circumstances to change. It changes its posture before anything shifts externally. That kind of mindset, it moves mountains, not just metaphorically, but literally. Because God doesn't just respond to needs, He responds to faith. Let me tell you a story about a young woman I know. We call her Mariah. She had a dream of becoming a fashion designer, but life wasn't exactly giving her runway lights and sewing machines. She was working a retail job, taking care of her siblings, and didn't even own a decent laptop. Everything around her said, not now, maybe not ever. But something inside her flipped one day. She stopped waiting for the right conditions and started sketching during her lunch breaks. She watched YouTube videos on design instead of binging shows. She acted as if doors were about to open even when her reality said otherwise. Fast forward 2 years. Mariah now runs her own small but thriving clothing brand. She didn't wait until she had a studio to start. She started in faith, right in the middle of lack. She told me once, I had to see it in my mind before I ever saw it in my life. And that right there is the power of perspective. Now, if you think that's impressive, let me take you back to one of the most iconic moments in Scripture, 1 Samuel 17, when a teenage shepherd named David stood in front of a seasoned warrior giant named Goliath. Everyone around David saw an impossible battle. They saw height, armor, intimidation, and defeat. But David saw something else. He saw an opportunity for God to be glorified. His perspective was radically different. Where Saul and the army saw danger, David saw destiny. Listen to David's words in verse 45. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. He didn't just believe God could win. He acted like it was already done. He ran toward the giant, not away from him. Imagine that. No sword, no shield, just a slingshot and unshakable faith. David's mindset wasn't based on what he saw. It was grounded in who he knew. That's the kind of perspective that changes the game. And isn't that just like life? Giants don't always come 9 feet tall. Sometimes they come dressed as deadlines, bad diagnoses, failing marriages, lost dreams, or the voice in your head saying, you're not enough. But how you see your giant will determine whether you hide in fear or rise in faith. The enemy wants you to magnify the problem. God wants you to magnify Him. Furthermore, your perspective doesn't just affect you. It impacts everyone connected to you. When David stepped up, the entire Israelite army gained courage. His perspective set a new tone for his generation. You might be the David in your family. You might be the one who decides to act as if God is who He says He is. And when you do, others will start to believe too. But let me make this personal. What if you stopped measuring your future based on your present? What if you started viewing your challenges as invitations to trust God more deeply? Faith doesn't ignore the facts, it just sees them through a different filter. It says, yes, this is hard, but God is still able. Yes, this looks impossible, but nothing is impossible with Him. You might be looking at your bank account and thinking, there's no way I'll ever be free from this. Or staring at a business that's barely breathing and wondering if you should just give up. But can I challenge you tonight to shift your perspective? Ask yourself, how would I act if I knew God was already working behind the scenes? How would I speak, think, plan, give, or serve if I believed that everything, even this, was going to work out for good? The truth is, God never promised we wouldn't face battles. But He did promise He'd never leave us in them. That changes everything. And when your mind shifts from fear to faith, your whole life starts to move in that direction. So tonight, if you remember nothing else, remember this: giants fall not because of perfect strategy, but because of fearless faith. And fearless faith begins with a perspective that refuses to magnify the problem and chooses instead to magnify the God who's never lost a battle. Let's keep going. Let's explore faith in action. It's easy to say we have faith when everything's going well. It's easy to raise our hands in worship when doors are opening and prayers are being answered in real time. But what about the moments when nothing is happening? When the job isn't coming through, the relationship is falling apart, the breakthrough feels like a myth. What does faith look like then? Because real, biblical faith isn't just what you feel, it's what you do. Faith isn't passive, it's incredibly proactive. It's not about waiting around for a sign in the sky. It's about taking steps, even when you don't see the path. Take Noah, for instance. Genesis chapters 6 through 9 paint a vivid picture of a man who didn't just believe God, he obeyed Him. God told Noah to build an ark because rain was coming. Now that might not sound too wild until you realize it had never rained before. Not like that. Noah didn't have evidence, he had a word. And what did he do? He picked up tools, he chopped wood, he measured cubits, he followed God's instructions down to the nail. Can you imagine the stares he must have gotten? The conversations, people probably thought he lost his mind. You're building a what, Noah? For a what kind of storm? But Noah didn't build the ark because the storm had started. He built the ark before the storm ever came. That's what faith in action looks like. It doesn't wait for proof. It prepares based on a promise. Likewise, James 2:17 brings this truth home with piercing clarity. Faith without works is dead. Not weak, not asleep, dead. In other words, faith that doesn't move is no faith at all. You can declare all the right things, pray all the right prayers, but if there's no movement, no obedience, it's empty. Because real faith doesn't just believe God will do it, it behaves like God's already doing it. Let me share a real story with you. This one hits close to home. A single mother I know, raising 3 children on her own, had a dream of launching a small catering business. No investors, no savings, just her talent, her hustle, and her faith. She could have waited until someone handed her a check or a perfect kitchen, but instead, she started cooking meals from her tiny apartment. She posted photos on social media, walked flyers around her neighborhood, and delivered food in her beat-up car with her kids in the backseat. She didn't wait until things made sense. She moved while it was messy. And do you know what happened? People started ordering. Then those orders turned into repeat clients. Then someone who tasted her food offered to sponsor her first small storefront kitchen. It didn't happen overnight, but it did happen through faith in motion. This woman didn't just hope for favor, she walked toward it. She lived as if God was backing her. Because he was, and he still is. See, when you take that first step, heaven leans in. God blesses the doers, not just the dreamers. In fact, I wonder, what ark is God calling you to build? What business idea, what ministry, what book, what step of obedience is sitting in your spirit right now, waiting for action? Because let me tell you something powerful. God often waits to release the provision after we take the step. We want the Red Sea to part before we move, but sometimes you have to step into the water first, like the priest did in Joshua 3. Then and only then did the water begin to roll back. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it takes risk. Yes, people might not understand. But your responsibility is not to make people understand. Your responsibility is to obey what God placed in your spirit. Because when you move in faith, you're not moving alone. You are moving with the authority and backing of the King of Kings. So let me ask you tonight, if you really believe that God was with you, what would you do differently? What emails would you send? What plans would you write down? Who would you forgive? What risk would you finally take? Because acting as if everything works out isn't just hopeful thinking. It's a posture of obedience. It says, God, I trust you so much, I'm going to move before I see a sign. I'm going to step even when I don't see the staircase. I'm going to build like the rain is coming. I'm going to sow like the harvest is already on its way. And here's the beautiful part. When we move with that kind of faith, we start to see God move in ways we never imagined. Not because we earned it, but because we trusted him enough to act before it made sense. Get ready to discover faith in action, regardless of circumstances. Let's get something straight tonight. Faith is not a feeling. It's not a goosebump moment. It's not just a few uplifting words during a Sunday message. Faith is a force. Faith is movement. Faith is stepping into what God has said, even when nothing around you confirms it. And more than that, faith is active. It's not sitting in a chair waiting for the phone to ring or the opportunity to knock. It's putting your hand to the plow while you're still, because real faith doesn't sit. It builds. Take Noah, for example. You can find his story between Genesis chapter 6 and verse 9. God came to him with an assignment that made absolutely no sense in human terms. Build a giant boat in the middle of dry land for a flood no one had ever seen. Rain? What rain? People probably thought he was delusional. But God didn't give Noah a weather forecast. He gave him instructions. And Noah didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He built. Day after day, year after year, with no proof except a word from God. Now imagine the ridicule, the whispers, the eye rolls. There goes crazy Noah again, working on that big boat for a storm that doesn't exist. But Noah kept swinging the hammer. He kept showing up, not because he saw results, but because he trusted the one who gave the blueprint. His faith didn't just believe, it moved. That's what sets him apart. And it's the same for us. Faith without action is just noise. James chapter 2 verse 17 says it plainly. Faith without works is dead. Not ineffective, not slow, dead. That means you can say all the right things, post all the scriptures, and still miss it if you're not putting your belief into motion. Because talk is cheap, Obedience costs something. I remember meeting a single mother, a woman who had every reason to play it safe. 3 kids, no spouse, no financial backing, just a dream burning in her belly and a conviction that God had more for her. She wanted to start a business, catering, but she had no commercial kitchen, no team, no big break, just pots, pans, and a vision. Rather than wait for the ideal moment, she got to work. She cooked meals out of her tiny apartment kitchen. She walked flyers door to door. She offered samples at local events. She sold plates from her car. I watched her grind through exhaustion, through doubt, through nights where she had to stretch every dollar. But she kept moving. She kept believing. And she kept acting as if God was going to meet her on the other side of her effort. And wouldn't you know it, he did. Someone noticed her food, invested in her dream, and helped her secure a small storefront. Today, she's not just running a successful catering business, she's mentoring other women who are where she used to be. That's what faith in action produces. Not just results, but legacy. So often, we say we're waiting on God. But what if He's waiting on us, waiting for us to pick up the hammer, waiting for us to type the first page of the book, waiting for us to apply for that grant, make that call, go to that meeting. See, the ark won't build itself. You have to start before it rains. What's powerful is that when we move, we partner with heaven. God doesn't just bless intentions, He blesses steps. Think about Peter. When he walked on water, he didn't wait for the storm to calm. He stepped out while the waves were still crashing. He walked not on water, but on a word. And the moment he acted in faith, the impossible became possible. Likewise, you've got to act like God is backing you, because He is. You don't have to wait for the crowd to believe in you. You don't need the applause of people to start doing what God has called you to do. The moment you align your faith with obedience, things begin to shift. Not always immediately, but certainly eventually. And don't be discouraged by slow progress. Noah built for over 100 years before the rain came. That means faith doesn't always work fast, but it always works faithfully. You're not building for applause. You're building for obedience. You're building because you trust that what God said is more real than what your situation looks like. The question tonight is simple. What would you be doing if you were sure God was with you? Would you start writing that business plan? Would you forgive someone? Would you sow into someone else's vision? Would you step away from what's comfortable to pursue what's kingdom? Let me tell you, the world doesn't need more talkers, it needs more builders. More people who don't just believe God in theory, but walk it out daily. People who act as if everything always works out, not because they've seen it yet, but because they know the one who holds the outcome. And when you act like God is backing you, you start to see doors open. Not because of your power, but because of your posture. So move, build, walk, act, because your faith doesn't become real when you say it. It becomes real when you live it. Let's talk about embracing delays without defeat. Sometimes the hardest part of faith isn't starting, it's waiting. Not because we don't believe God can do it, but because we thought it would have happened by now. You see, it's easy to be bold in the beginning. It's easy to move with confidence when the idea is fresh and hope is high. But what do you do when days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and you're still in the same place, praying the same prayer? Wondering, God, did you forget me? This is where real faith gets tested. Not in the go, but in the wait. Let's talk about Joseph for a moment. His story spans across Genesis chapter 37 to chapter 50, and if you've read it before, you know it's not a straight line from dream to destiny. God gave Joseph a vision, a clear one. He saw himself rising to leadership, saw others bowing before him, saw significance. But instead of promotion, he got betrayal. Instead of elevation, he got thrown into a pit by his own brothers. And if that wasn't enough, he was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and tossed into prison. Nowhere in the dream did prison show up, but there he was. Nevertheless, Joseph didn't let the delay destroy his discipline. He didn't quit. He didn't lose his excellence. He didn't say, well, since this isn't what I expected, I'll just sit back and do the bare minimum. No, he served. He interpreted dreams for others while his own dreams were still on hold. He managed the prison with integrity, and when the time came, when Pharaoh needed someone trustworthy, someone gifted, someone prepared, Joseph was ready. Why? Because he acted as if God was still working, even when nothing looked like it. Moreover, that kind of faith, waiting without withering, is what opens the door for miracles. So many of us miss what God wants to do because we mistake delay for denial. But delay is not God saying no, it's God saying not yet. And let's be honest, not yet can feel like a gut punch when you're giving your all, when you're praying with everything in you, when you're watching others get what you're still believing for. But hear me tonight. God does some of his greatest work behind the curtain of silence. We see this echoed in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Notice it doesn't say some things, it says all things. That includes delays, that includes confusion, that includes being overlooked, misunderstood, passed over. Joseph couldn't see it when he was in the pit, but the pit was part of the plan. The betrayal, the injustice, the prison, all of it was positioning him for the palace. At this point, you might be thinking, well, what do I do while I wait? And that's the right question. Because the waiting season isn't a wasted season unless you waste it. This is the time to sharpen your gifts. This is the time to cultivate discipline. This is the time to serve faithfully, even if no one sees. Remember, Joseph didn't wait for a promotion to start acting like a leader. He led in the prison first. Let me bring this home. A friend of mine applied for a high-level job she felt called to. She had the experience, the education, the passion, everything aligned. But the door didn't open. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Each time she felt that sting. But instead of shrinking, she poured herself into her current role. She started mentoring others. She took extra certifications. She showed up early and stayed late. Years later, yes, years, the company called her. Not only for the job she originally applied for, but for something even bigger than she had imagined. She told me, had I gotten it earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. God knew the pace I needed, not just the place I wanted. That's it right there. God is not just preparing a place for you, he's preparing you for the place. And sometimes that takes time, but don't confuse divine timing with divine absence. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not in motion. So keep doing what Joseph did. Show up. Stay excellent. Stay humble. Keep giving your best when no one is watching. Keep sowing seeds, even if you don't see fruit yet. Your palace moment is coming, but the question is, will you be ready when it knocks? Stay with me as we unpack self-discipline, the faith muscle. Discipline. Now there's a word most of us don't shout amen over. It's not flashy. It doesn't trend. It doesn't get instant applause. But if you're serious about living out your purpose, if you truly want to act as if everything always works out, then discipline cannot be optional. It must become your default. Because what we call discipline, heaven often calls faith in motion. Too often we separate the spiritual from the practical. We say we trust God, but our schedule is chaotic. We say we believe in our calling, but we can't wake up consistently to prepare for it. That's where many miss it, not in their belief, but in their habits. And here's the truth. Self-discipline is not just a personal preference. It is a spiritual. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11 says it straight. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Did you catch that? Discipline produces a harvest. In other words, it's not punishment, it's preparation. Now, let's be real. Discipline doesn't feel spiritual at first. Waking up early to read your Bible, setting boundaries with your time, choosing character when no one's watching, these don't always come with goosebumps. But that's the very point. God is looking for people who won't just feel inspired, but who will train themselves to carry what he's about to release. Picture an athlete in the off-season. No cameras, no fans, just early mornings, sore muscles, and repetition. While others are sleeping, this athlete is grinding, not because it's a guaranteed win, but because there's a commitment to be ready when the whistle blows. They act as if the championship is coming, even when there's no crowd in sight. And it's the quiet training that separates them when the lights turn on. Likewise, I know a young woman who felt called to teach, but had no open doors yet. Instead of waiting for the opportunity, she created one. She woke up every morning and practiced in front of a mirror. She recorded lessons on her phone. She volunteered to tutor children in her neighborhood. No paycheck, no title, no recognition, but she was preparing as if the opportunity had already arrived. Months later, a local school faced a sudden staff shortage and needed someone fast. They didn't look at resumes. They called the woman who had already been doing the work. She didn't pray for favor. She trained for it. Here's where this ties directly into your faith. When you are disciplined, you are declaring, God, I believe the door is coming. I believe the assignment is real, and I'm going to be ready before it shows up. That's what walking by faith looks like. You're not waiting for the platform to start preparing the message. You're not waiting for the job to start building the skill. You're not waiting for applause to start showing up like a professional. Even Jesus, before his public ministry, spent 30 years in the quiet, 30 years of obedience, 30 years of learning carpentry, honoring his parents, studying scripture, building character. Only 3 years of ministry, but decades of preparation. Why? Because discipline sets the foundation for what destiny will demand. And let me challenge you with something practical. Look at your routines. Look at how you manage your mornings. Look at how you handle your gifts, your body, your mind. Are you stewarding them in a way that reflects where you're going or where you've been? Because if you act as if everything always works out, you won't waste time, you'll guard it. You won't scroll endlessly, you'll study. You won't just wish for change, you'll train for it. Self-discipline is not about perfection, it's about posture. It's about saying, I trust God so much, I'm not going to wait until I see it. I'm going to live like it's already mine. And when you do that, people may not understand your level of commitment. They may say, why are you trying so hard when nothing's happening yet? But what they don't see is what you believe. You believe there's more. You believe something's coming. You believe the harvest is on the other side of consistency. And here's the beauty of discipline. It doesn't just prepare you for success. It protects you when you get there. Because open doors without strong discipline can crush a weak character. But when you've been trained by sacrifice, by consistency, by humility, You're not just gifted. So I'll ask you again, if you truly believe things will work out, what kind of discipline would you walk in today? What would you start doing now? Because faith without action is dead. And action without discipline is aimless. Keep sharpening, keep showing up, keep living as if God's promise is closer than it feels. Because it is. And your discipline is your declaration that you're ready to carry it well. Together, let's uncover overcoming fear and doubt. Fear is that invisible wall standing between where you are and where you're called to be. And the tricky part, it disguises itself as logic. It whispers, what if you fail? What if you're not enough? What if this isn't the right time? But let me flip that for a moment. What if everything does work out? What if instead of fear being your forecast, faith was your fuel? You see, fear is not just an emotion, it's a spiritual thief. It robs clarity, paralyzes action, and disguises doubt as wisdom. But Scripture couldn't be clearer. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, it says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." That means if fear is driving your decisions, God is not in the driver's seat. Faith is not the absence of fear, it's the choice to trust God anyway. Think about Peter in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 to 33. Jesus is walking on the water, and Peter sees him and says, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come." Jesus says, "Come." That was all Peter needed. He steps out of the boat, and for a moment he walks on water. Think about that. A human being defying the laws of physics, not because he was powerful, but because he believed. But the minute he shifted his focus from the word to the waves, he sank. Not because the storm got stronger, but because his faith got weaker. Now here's the question. How many of us have stepped out in faith only to sink the moment fear spoke louder than God? You were ready to launch the business, but someone said, "What if it fails?" You were ready to forgive, but fear said, "What if they hurt you again?" You were ready to go back to school, start the ministry, apply for the opportunity, but then the waves of worry drowned the whisper of God. Still, fear only wins when you feed it. And you feed it with overthinking, with comparison, with isolation. But when you start feeding your faith, with prayer, with worship, with the word, you starve fear's influence. That's why it's so crucial to speak life over yourself. Sometimes you've got to look in the mirror and say, "I was not created for fear, I was made for purpose." You've got to declare Scripture until your soul starts believing it. And you've got to surround yourself with people who push you toward faith, not panic. I remember meeting a young man who was terrified to take a step of faith into ministry. He felt the call, no doubt, but he also felt unqualified, inexperienced, unsure. He told me, "I'm afraid I'll mess it up. I'm afraid I'll let people down." And I said, "You might, but that's not the question. The real question is, who might miss their breakthrough if you let fear silence your assignment?" He took the leap, shaking knees and all. And now he's reaching people who wouldn't hear the gospel any other way. All because he refused to bow to fear. Fear will always offer a counterfeit future. One that says you're abandoned, unprotected, destined to fall. But faith reminds you that you are covered, equipped, and chosen. The key is deciding who you're going to believe. Because fear is just faith in the wrong outcome. When you believe that God is who he says he is, fear has no authority over your life. When you believe that God is working all things for your good, fear loses its grip. So let me ask you again. What if everything does work out? What if the very thing you're afraid to start becomes the breakthrough someone else is praying for? What if your obedience unlocks not only your purpose, but a chain reaction of miracles in the lives of others. Now is not the time to hesitate. Now is the time to silence fear with faith. You have a sound mind, you have power, you have love, and above all, you have a God who walks on water and calls you to do the same. Step out. The boat was never your destiny. Let me open your eyes to how productivity aligned with purpose. When we talk about productivity, many people think of hustle, long to-do lists, and staying busy. But productivity in the kingdom of God is not just about being busy, it's about being aligned. Because you can be exhausted and still not be effective. You can be moving fast and still be headed in the wrong direction. True fruitfulness comes when what you're doing lines up with why God created you in the first place. Now consider the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 to 30. Jesus tells the story of a master who gives his servants different amounts of money. 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent, each according to their ability. The first 2 servants immediately go to work and invest what they've been given. They double their portion. But the third servant buries his talent in the ground. He doesn't lose it, but he also doesn't grow it. And when the master returns, the 2 who took action are praised. But the one who played it safe, he's called wicked and lazy. Why? Because doing nothing with what God gave you is not safe. It's wasteful. Similarly, many people are waiting for a perfect plan or ideal conditions before they act. But what if acting in faith meant simply using what's already in your hands? What if alignment isn't about having all the answers, but having the courage to start moving in the direction of God's voice? Let me share a story of a woman I know, an entrepreneur. She had no investors, no clear roadmap, just a burning idea and a belief that God had called her to business. Her first attempt failed. The second one did too. But she didn't stop. She kept showing up, kept refining, kept praying and adjusting. Finally, on her 4th attempt, something clicked. A small digital product she created went viral, and within months, she had built a 6-figure business from scratch. And when asked how she did it, she said, "I just kept planting and trusting God to send the harvest." That's productivity with purpose. Moreover, productivity doesn't begin with action. It begins with clarity. You must first know your why before you chase your what. When you're not sure of your purpose, it's easy to say yes to everything and produce very little. But once your purpose is clear, your priorities become sharper and your energy becomes focused. That's when fruit starts showing up. Not just effort, but results. Furthermore, productivity is not something you chase alone. It's a partnership with the Holy Spirit. That means you can ask God, what would you have me focus on today? Where should I invest my time, my energy, my gifts? Because when you're aligned with His plan, even your small steps carry supernatural impact. You may feel like what you have is too small to matter. But remember, God doesn't ask you to multiply the talent on your own. He simply asks you to invest it. Take the step, make the call, write the plan, send the email. Whatever your version of movement looks like, do it as if it's going to work out. Because if God gave it to you, it already has purpose inside of it. So here's the bottom line. Fruitfulness follows faithfulness. When you're faithful with what God has placed in your hand, He will multiply it in ways you never imagined. Just like in Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 to 30, the reward wasn't just more money, it was more responsibility. And responsibility in the kingdom is a sign of trust. God says, you were faithful over a little. I'll now make you ruler over much. Therefore, don't confuse movement with purpose. Let your productivity be born out of obedience, not anxiety. Clarify your purpose, make a plan, take bold action, and trust God with the results. When your work is aligned with your why, your impact becomes inevitable. Let's move forward. Not just with hustle, but with holy focus. And with that holy focus, something begins to shift. Not just in what you do, but in how you do it. You're no longer working to prove your worth. You're working from a place of knowing your worth. You're not running around trying to make everything happen. You're walking in step with the God who already wrote your story. Let me tell you, one of the biggest misconceptions is that God's calling should feel easy. That if it's really Him, doors will fly open, clients will pour in, the ideas will be seamless. But that's not alignment, that's convenience. Alignment means that even in resistance, you remain consistent. Even in delay, you remain obedient. Because you're not working for results, you're working from revelation. You're moving because you know God told you to. And that's enough. Now, don't get me wrong. Strategy matters. Systems matter. God is not glorified in chaos. But strategy without submission is just noise. Before you ask God to bless your efforts, ask Him if those efforts are even assigned to you. Productivity without purpose will leave you drained. But when you move in alignment, even your smallest actions carry eternal weight. It might look like waking up early to write the book no one's asked for yet. It might look like serving faithfully in a job that doesn't fully reflect your dream. It might look like launching the business, not knowing where the first sale will come from. But every act of obedience plants a seed. And as it says in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, let us not grow weary in well-doing. For in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. In other words, if you just keep showing up in alignment with God's purpose, the harvest has to come. So let me say this plainly. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be productive. Not by the world's standard of grind and exhaustion, but by the kingdom's standard of obedience, focus, and faith. It's not about how much you do. It's about whether what you do reflects what He's called you to build. So what does it look like practically? Start by clarifying your purpose. Seek Him in prayer. Reflect on what stirs your heart. Pay attention to the doors He keeps opening. Then plan. Set goals. Define action steps. Be intentional. And finally, act. Don't sit on your talent. Don't wait for perfect. Don't bury what God gave you because you're afraid it's not enough. The servant in Matthew chapter 25, verse 25 said, I was afraid, so I hid your talent. And the master didn't praise his caution. He rebuked it. Playing it safe is not the same as being faithful. Friend, you were never created just to exist. You were created to bear fruit. Jesus said in John chapter 15, verse 16, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit. Fruit that will last. That's your assignment. To be fruitful in your lane, in your purpose, in your calling. So here's your reminder today. Don't just work hard. Work in alignment. Clarify your purpose. Make a plan. And take bold, obedient action. Act as if everything works out, not because you're delusional, but because you're walking with the God who works all things together for your good. Let's build, let's plant, let's steward what we've been given, and let's do it all knowing He's with us, He's for us. And when we align our productivity with His purpose, the results are guaranteed.